The first excerpt of Kamala Harris's tell-all book about her time in the Biden White House and, of course, her 107-day presidential campaign has now been released in The Atlantic. We're going to read a little bit of it together. But nothing is more priceless and precious and amusing than watching Joe and Mika deal with their golden child, the woman they wanted to ascend to the presidency, throw their favorite president of all time, Joe Biden, right under the treads of that giant Greyhound bus that's about to roll over the entire Biden legacy. We knew this was coming. We hoped it was coming. We've had the popcorn popped for weeks, and now it's time. Kamala Harris is taking no prisoners because she's an awful, awful human being. Here's Mika and Joe announcing the news of this book excerpt to their audience this morning. Enjoy.
Okay. The Atlantic has published an excerpt from former Vice President Kamala Harris's forthcoming new book entitled 107 Days. And in it, Harris details the challenges she faced when Joe Biden dropped out of the race and she was suddenly tapped to run for president. In it, she writes, during all those months of growing panic, should I have told Joe to consider not running? Perhaps. It's Joe and Jill's decision. We all said that, like a mantra, as if we'd all been hypnotized. Was it grace or was it recklessness? In retrospect, I think it was recklessness. The stakes were simply too high. This wasn't a choice that should have been left to an individual's ego, an individual's ambition. It should have been more than a personal decision. I was well aware.
Yeah, all right, let's pause there for just a second. By the way, there's so much I have to say about this. It's one of those stories where I absolutely loathe everybody involved here. You know how I feel about Joe Biden. I think he's one of the awful people in American politics over the last 5 decades. And that was not a new revelation. I said it back when he was vice president, back when he was still a senator. I said it about him. He's a loathsome, loathsome, horrible person. He's everything that's wrong with American politics. Jill Biden is one of the most opportunistic, maniacal, selfish people that you will ever meet in American politics. Nobody likes her, by the way. And of course, there's Kamala Harris, who is a complete and total dolt, a duplicitous, two-faced, liar, disloyal, who will change policies on the turn of a dime if she thinks it'll help her political ambitions. So forgive me for my glee as I see them all turn their guns on each other in the circular firing squad. Quickly, during all those months of growth. Oh, wait, actually, Mika said something here at first. I want to just say, I love that the headline of the Atlantic story is The Constant Battle. Oh, what a fighter she is. Listen to this.
Dropped out of the race and she was suddenly tapped to run for president.
Yeah, did you catch that? Joe Biden dropped out of the race and Kamala Harris was tapped. She was tapped. Are you kidding me? She stabbed everybody in the back. She pushed everybody out of the way. She had her tapped. She sharpened her elbows and slammed everyone in the throat to keep them out of her way to grab that brass wing. She wasn't tapped. Who tapped her? Well, actually, that's a whole other story. She did get tapped a bit in the early days of her career. Ask Willie Brown. Okay, but then take this. This is an incredibly, incredibly revealing statement. I know that as you heard Mika read it, the wasn't a choice that should have been left to an individual's ego and individual's ambition. As you hear Mika read this again, I know that your instinct is to think that she's talking about Joe Biden. I don't think she is. As you hear this one more time, imagine Jill Biden. Just for a moment, set Joe aside for a second. Who does this better describe, Joe or FLOTUS?
In retrospect, I think it was recklessness. The stakes were simply too high. This wasn't a choice that should have been left to an individual's ego, an individual's ambition. It should have been more than a personal decision.
She's talking about Jill. Let me tell you, when there will be retaliation against Kamala Harris. I assure you there will be. And everyone who worked on the Biden White House has tons of dirt, like ugly, dirty garbage on Kamala Harris, and it's all going to come down on her head. That's why we're excited about this. Not because she's trashing the Bidens. I mean, please, but because she's going to get trashed right back. And I'm telling you, Jill has never liked her, and she has never liked Jill. And that's who she's talking about right here. It wasn't Joe's ego or ambition. He didn't have enough mental capacity to have an ego or ambition. And he was already president of the United States. What ambition did you have more than that? It was her. It was Jill. And I love it. All right, more.
I was well aware of my delicate status. Lore has it that every outgoing chief of staff always tells the incoming president's chief of staff, rule number 1, watch the VP. I often learned that the president's staff was adding fuel to negative narratives that sprang up around me. When the stories were unfair or inaccurate, the president's inner circle seemed fine with it. Indeed, it seemed as if they decided I should be knocked down a little bit more.
All right, I want to jump in here one more time, just in terms of DC insider stuff. This is one of the most cowardly, despicable things this woman can do. Let me explain. She was vice president of the United States. She was a senator. She was the nominee for president of the United States. And she's throwing Biden's staff under the bus. This is specifically directed at the chief of staff, the comms people, the domestic and foreign policy advisors who worked for Joe Biden. These aren't people who make the big bucks. These aren't people who get all of the fame and glory of running for elected office and all the perks. These are the people who make a White House run, like them or not, agree with them or not. These are not the people who are going to be able to sell a $10 million book deal like Kamala Harris. And she's attacking them, not Biden, not Jill. I mean, attacking Biden and Jill as well, but now she's throwing the staff under the bus. And here's the other thing that's incredibly cowardly about it. She's not naming any names. Now, you may rationalize that, and she may even rationalize that as, oh, well, that would be too much to actually name Ron Klain, the former chief of staff, or to name Jen Psaki, the comms director. That would be even worse. No. Actually, that would take some balls. That would actually show some character to name names. Because when you don't name names, well, first of all, when you do name names and you say, yeah, Ron Klain did this, and Jen Psaki did that, and Karine Jean-Pierre did this, and it screwed me, then they have a chance to respond. They have a chance to defend themselves. They have a chance to show their receipts. That's number one. Number two, when you don't name any names, then you're actually pointing the finger at everyone. Now, everyone who worked in the Biden White House, the chief of staff's office, the domestic and foreign policy office, everyone who worked in the Eisenhower executive office building, everyone who worked in the West Wing, everybody who worked in the comms department, they're all implicated. Because when you don't point the finger and name names specifically, when you're trashing people for apparently undermining you because you were such a glorious, impressive, magnificent vice president, don't make me laugh. When you just say it was the entirety of the staff, then you're throwing everyone who worked in that White House. And let me tell you something. That sort of thing, it doesn't go over very well in Washington, D.C. This is going to boomerang on Kamala Harris like you won't believe. And it's going to be, did I say glorious? It's going to be glorious. And we're just scratching the surface. Hang on. Wait until you see the Morning Joe people react to this.
Their thinking was zero sum. If she's shining, he's dimmed. None of them grasped that if I did well, he did well. That given the concerns about his age, my visible success as his vice president was vital. It would serve as a testament to his judgment in choosing me and reassurance that if something happened, the country was in good hands.
Well,
that is from Kamala Harris's new book.
Look at their faces. Like they are stunned. They are absolutely stunned. I love Joe's like, well, see, understand these two people for an entire year told us, number one, that Biden was, what was it that Joe said? This is the best version of Joe Biden I've ever seen in my life. You can't handle how great Joe Biden is. And then when that was no longer a lie that he could continue, they immediately pivoted to Kamala Harris as a glorious, transcendent political genius. We are honored to have her walking amongst us. She'll be the greatest president ever. And now look at how they have to deal with this. It's all right. All right, I'll stop.
Yeah. But I was just going to say, so Willie or who wants to take the jump ball here? Rev, I'll go to you. So you know politics. I mean, you've run for president. A couple of things here. I can understand everybody wringing their hands saying, why didn't we step in? Why didn't we intervene? I can understand the Vice President Harris doing that. But people that know Joe Biden and Jill Biden know, speaking of jump balls, nobody was going to take that ball from their hands. They were determined. I mean, I talked to a lot of people. I do a lot of people around the Bidens, and the further you get away from it, the further you realize that Joe Biden and Jill Biden were not going to be talked out of anything until the pressure was overwhelming. That's number one. Number two, vice presidents are treated badly by the president's staff. Ask Joe Biden. There were times he was treated absolutely horrifically by Barack Obama's staff. Just no respect. And sadly, that happened. So people that may be saying, oh, well, Kamala Harris is bitter. Nah, you know, this unfortunately is a dynamic that happens in every White House.
There's a whole show.
No, actually, if I may, and there is a few more minutes of this, and we're going to watch every glorious bit of it because certainly we want Al Sharpton's genius and wisdom. But I'm crying foul on this. I'm throwing a flag. That's absolute bullshit, Joe Scarborough. She was treated better than any vice president I can remember. Do you remember how they called this the Biden-Harris administration? That's never been done before. They had her name on the letterhead. They had her name on the website. That doesn't happen. You go to the White House website right now. Does it say the Trump-Vance administration? Of course it doesn't. That never happens. It's true that the Obama people hated Joe Biden. That's true. They did treat him shabbily. You know that the entire time Joe Biden was vice president for 8 years, he was never invited to the private residence of the president on the second floor of the White House for dinner. Not once. Yeah. First time he was ever up there was when he was actually president of the United States. They hated Joe Biden. They're all two-faced liars. But let me just be clear. They helped her so much. Mark Halperin's been reporting on this too, by the way. Over on his podcast, that the Biden team bailed her out of so many messes that she made for herself. They try, and part of it was because Joe Biden was sympathetic to her because he knew how hard it was to be a vice president. And so he wanted to help her along. But again, I'll just leave it at the fact that they let her have her name on everything. When they would give a press briefing, it wasn't the Biden administration, no, it was the Biden-Harris administration. It was outrageous what they did for her. So I'm sorry, Joe, that's just the lie. There's not always these issues with an administration and a vice president's staff. Not even close.
About it.
No, there's no doubt about it. One of the reasons I wanted to take the jump ball on this is I remember at the beginning, I was among those saying to Biden when he won the nomination, we want to see a black woman on the ticket. Right. He had already committed a black woman in the Supreme Court, which he did. Right. But our argument was, well, suppose you don't get elected. We want to see one on the ticket. And to our surprise, he chose Kamala Harris, who had debated him pretty viciously, right? According to some feeling during the thing. He
suggested he was racist.
That's correct.
Good on the debate
and to his credit, he felt she was the best candidate.
Yeah.
So she came in to a staff that already was saying, why did he pick her? Mm-hmm. She ambushed us. So she was not in a position to really counsel that you ought to step aside when they never really, the staff, acclimated to her. And I think that anyone that got to know President Biden as I did, know that it was him and Jill that were going to make the final decision. Right. So here's somebody that already was sort of in the midway house that was going to jump over the staff and go. I think that she was in a very peculiar position. Though the public would say, why didn't you say something? I don't think she was in a position.
No, she just wasn't.
Think at the end, I don't think she was reckless. Well, I think she did what she could do.
And by the way, Joe Biden and Jill Biden weren't listening. They weren't going to. If she went in, she could go in and say it all the time. They weren't listening. I will say, John, as we talk about Kamala Harris, there's also just the truth too. Early on, she did herself no favors. I mean, she had a terrible time with her staff the first year or two. It was the White House was having to do triage on her staffing problems. Everybody leaving, so she had a rocky start, but she certainly leveled out and started doing, I think, very well.
And stepped up during the campaign in an unbelievable way.
By the way, that's the thing that's always forgotten. She was like, I remember calling her one time going, I wasn't sure. You're up on stage. You look like Evita, when she was going to like 15,000 people events and they're all screaming and going crazy. And I was like, never saw that coming.
Yeah, she found her voice in the vice presidency. People around Biden even grudgingly admit that around when the Dobbs decision came down, that's when she really stepped up.
Right.
And then ran as good of a campaign as she could have. Most people believe in those 107 days. Yeah.
With Trump? My God.
And had a strong debate performance. She also writes in the book, certainly there's, as Mika just read, questions there about Biden's decision to run. But she also addresses the other part, like, did she think he was capable of holding the office? And she says this: Joe Biden was a smart guy with long experience and deep conviction. On his worst day, he was more deeply knowledgeable, more capable of exercising judgment, and far more compassionate than Donald Trump on his best. But she does say, but at age 81, Joe got tired. I don't believe it was incapacity. If I believe that, I would have said so. Mm-hmm. As loyal as I am to President Biden, I am more loyal to my country.
Yeah, well, she's not loyal to either. She's not loyal to either, and that's a lie. And now she's writing off Biden as, he was just tired. He was tired. That's all it was. And I do love, if I can just go back for a moment, about, but she was a perfect campaigner. I love that they have rewritten history about what a great campaigner she was and what a great candidate she was. And she ran the best possible race. She lost across the board. She lost the popular vote to Donald Trump, which is something they told us would never, ever happen. And frankly, most of us didn't think would ever happen. She lost every single battleground state. She was worse than Hillary Clinton was. And let's not forget that as the candidate for president, she had one major decision to make to demonstrate to the entire nation what kind of wisdom and intelligence and sober thinking she would bring to the job of president. That one decision was who her running mate would be. You think about this. This is the most critical and important choice one individual can make. You see, we all elect a president, but the person who's one heartbeat away from the presidency, that all boils down to this one person. That's incredible power, that they get to single-handedly name the person who could very well be the next president of the United States if something horrible happens. And using that wisdom, that intelligence, that sober thinking, and circumspect inner thought, she came up with Tim Walz. And yet they refuse to acknowledge the fact that she was a disaster. And I got to tell you, they keep saying this over and over and over again, what a great campaigner she was, what a great candidate she was. She was better than we ever expected. And I got to tell you, guys, we got to start beating the drum right now. Every single politician, when interviewed, from Gavin Newsom to Josh Shapiro to Ro Khanna to who else are they throwing out there as potential candidates for president? Every single name that you hear as a potential candidate for president for the Democrats, you should just ask them, hold on a minute. You said Kamala Harris should be president in 2024, and you said she was a great candidate. So why aren't you backing her to get the nomination again? She only had 107 days. You should give her a fair chance now. Gavin Newsom, why on earth would you challenge Kamala Harris? You told her that she was perfect, that she would be great, that she's a brilliant. Put them. I want their answers. I want to know what's the logical rationale behind any of these Democrats stepping up and challenging her. Pete Buttigieg, why shouldn't Kamala Harris get a full chance to run for president? She should be renominated by acclamation. You did it last time without a primary. You might as well do it again this time. Just go straight to the convention. We want Kamala. Let's go. Meanwhile, there's a little bit more. We've got a few more excerpts from the book. Of all the people in the White House, I was in the worst position to make the case that he should drop out. I knew it would come off as to him as incredibly self-serving if I advised him not to run. Well, why? You've had 4 years to build your relationship with him. I thought that he trusted your judgment. I thought that you were a close advisor. I thought that you were somebody that he would turn to. In fact, wouldn't they used to always say that she would be the last person in the room when a big important decision was made? I've got to think, after all those important decisions that were made, the Afghanistan pullout, the border crisis, the how to fight inflation, Ukraine, Hamas. I've got to think at this point, after 3.5 years, Kamala, you've built a level of trust with the president that he would never think that you had ulterior motives if you gave him your sober and wise advice that perhaps maybe he shouldn't run for re-election. I'm sorry, I think I just bit my tongue because I had it so far in my cheek while I said that. That hurt. He would see it as naked ambition, perhaps as poisonous disloyalty, even if my only message was, don't let the other guy win. Do you know why he would see it as naked ambition and poisonous disloyalty? Because it is naked ambition and poisonous disloyalty. You know how I know she's not loyal? Because she wrote this book. And this is the first excerpt. It's glorious. It's Joe and Jill's decision. We all said that like a mantra, as if we'd been hypnotized. Was it grace? Was it recklessness? In retrospect, I think it was recklessness. The stakes were simply too high. This wasn't a choice that should have been left to an individual's ego or individual's ambition. It should have been more than a personal decision. Like I said, I think she's talking about Jill there. All right, here we go. It was just after 5 p.m. in Houston, and the president would be addressing the nation from the Oval Office later that evening. I watched in at the hotel that night. It was a good speech, drawing on the history of the presidency to locate his own place within it. But as my staff later pointed out, it was almost 9 minutes into the 11-minute address before he mentioned me. The ego on this woman. This is the speech that Joe Biden made when he explained to the American people why he wouldn't be running for re-election. And do you really believe it was the staff that pointed that out? Oh, no. You know Kamala was watching this thing saying, mention me. When is he going to talk about me? When's he going to bring me up? This is about me, damn it. It's about me. A little bit more. When Fox News attacked me on everything from my laugh to my tone of voice. By the way, we didn't attack you for your laugh. We loved your laugh. Are you kidding? We played it over and over and over again. We didn't attack you. We gloried in that. And let's not forget your speech, unburdened by the past. We can see what can be unburdened by the past. What can be unburdened by the past. When you repeat the same speech over and over again with the very same hand motions about 125 times to the same audiences over the course of 6 months, we don't attack that. Are you kidding? We promoted it. We loved it. To my laugh, to the tone of my voice, to whom I dated in my 20s. Is that what the kids are calling it now? Dating? Did you date? Oh, it's a date. Okay. Or claimed I was a DEI hire. Wait, we just heard from Al Sharpton that you were legitimately, by every definition, a DEI hire. Al Sharpton and the congressman from South Carolina, they demanded that Biden select a black woman. Maybe you don't know what DEI hire means. When somebody specifically goes out of their way and says, we're going to set standards aside, we're going to set qualifications aside. When I choose my vice president, the only thing or the most important thing I'm looking at is that it's a black woman. That is, by definition, a DEI hire. You are hired to be diverse and inclusive. Claimed I was a DEI hire. They're bragged about how you were a DEI hire. The White House rarely pushed back with my actual resume. 2 terms elected DA, top cop in the second largest Department of Justice in the United States, senator representing 1 in 8 Americans. Lorraine Voles, my chief of staff, wait, which chief of staff was that? Was that the 7th chief of staff that you had or the 8th chief of staff that you had? I'm just trying to keep count. Constantly had to advocate for my role at events. She's not going to stand there like a potted plant. Give her 2 minutes of remarks. Have her introduce the president. Can you imagine J.D. Vance's people doing this in the Trump White House? This is sad. And the fact that she's so tone deaf that she thinks it's okay, that she in some way looks noble for writing this crap. God, what a nightmare this woman is. Oh, and this one, I love this one. Do you remember the clip? We played it here on the show quite a bit when she was in France and she said something about the plan. You remember that? And then she laughed at herself with her cackle. We have the plan, right? I said the plan with exaggerated emphasis and air quotes. Fox News, the New York Post, and Newsmax went wild. Hey, you know what? I'm getting sick of this. What about us? What about our show? We went wild too. Can we not get a little love, or for that matter, hate from the former vice president? And the problem is we're not higher enough on her algorithm. Could you all give us a like and a subscribe? Leave some comments here. Say something nasty about Kamala Harris, just so it boosts our video that much more. We got to get on her platform. Newsmax. Come on. Newsmax went wild claiming I'd faked a French accent. She did fake a French accent. This was total nonsense, but the White House seemed glad to let reporting about my gaffe. It was a gaffe. She's an idiot. Overwhelm the significant thought and foreign relations I'd achieved. She didn't achieve anything. Worse, I often learned that the president's staff was adding fuel to negative narratives that sprang up around me. One narrative that took a stubborn hold was that I had a chaotic office and unusually high staff turnover during my first year. Well, that's because it's true. That's because it's true. Our friend Western Lensman, subscribe to his account on X. We love the videos that Western Lensman's put out. He uncovered this video interview that she gave for 60 Minutes, which really does. I mean, knowing all of this, knowing everything that was going on between her office and the White House office and how she was just dying for Joe Biden to step down, but she couldn't say it because she would be seen as disloyal, but she didn't want the egos to take over and it shouldn't have been all this stuff that she's saying now about the decision-making process. Watch this again when she was asked about Joe Biden and his health and whether he was running for re-election. Watch her face as she chokes on the bile gurgling up her esophagus during this moment.
We were talking to some Democratic donors, and they have told us that should something befall President Biden and he is not able to run, that there would be a free-for-all for who would run as president. You are in the spot that would be a natural for you to step up, but we're hearing from donors that they would not naturally fall into line. Why is that?
Well, first of all, I'm not going to engage in that hypothetical because Joe Biden is very much alive and running for re-election. So
but you do know, I mean, that is a concern and a legitimate concern, I would say.
I hear from a lot of different people, a lot of different things. But let me just tell you, I'm focused on the job. I truly am. Our democracy is on the line, Bill. And I frankly, in my head, do not have time for parlor games when we have a president who is running for re-election. That's it.
Oh, man. Listen, I know this is all, it's in the past. Let's move on. Let's not keep talking about, no. Hell no. I mean, this is in the news today because these are the first excerpts from the book, but we are going to beat this drum as much as we can. Don't you ever forget that the media sold this woman on you. That the Bidens and the Democrat Party sold this woman on you. They told you that she was glorious and she was wonderful and she was the greatest and she was amazing and she should be president. And thank God cooler heads prevailed. Thank God the American people did the right thing. Thank God we are where we are right now. But I'll say it again, one more time. Pop the popcorn. This ain't over. This is the first shot. Just wait till the Bidens retaliate. It's going to get even more glorious. It's going to get greater. And I say it again to all my friends who are Democrats, to the media, please explain yourself. You told us how great she was going to be. You keep telling us that she ran the perfect campaign. The only reason she lost was because she only had 107 days. So explain to me. Why bother going through a primary process? Nominate her again. Why would anyone challenge this incredible, transcendent political leader, this genius who walks among us? Please, we want Kamala. God, do we want Kamala?